Another Friday afternoon in the West Bank village of Belayin, and another demonstration against the Israeli government's wall that will take over half of the village's land.
لأنك كل أسبوع بتضرب غاز على القرية أكثر من 1000 كرة غاز، إحنا بنقول لك اليوم، أنا بقول لك هيني، في عندنا مسيرة سلمية حافظ على الشعب.
It matters little what they're called, whether walls, barriers, or fences. The intention is the same, to redefine human relations into us and them. This is a story about division, about the barriers that men erect in calculation or desperation to separate themselves from others, or others from them. When diplomacy and conciliation fail, this is the alternative.
I call it a wall of shame because hundreds and thousands of Palestinians are without jobs because of the wall, are without freedom of movement because of the wall, are without their olive trees. And Israel is blindfolded, is refusing to see. And the population of Israel are not ashamed.
There's nothing new about so-called protective walls. Most ancient cities had them. The ones we see today around Jerusalem date from the 16th century. But the 21st century walls not only look different, they serve a different purpose. The wall is just over 700 kilometers long so far. It's costing $2 million every kilometer. It began in 2002, and it goes deep into Palestinian territory in the West Bank and Jerusalem, splitting neighbors and encircling villages. It's the biggest construction project in Israel, and one that its supporters claim is necessary to ensure Israel's security.
This fence is for security reasons. This fence is only for blocking the way of suicide bombers into Israel.
And yet, plans for the division of Israel and Palestine predate the relatively modern phenomenon of suicide attacks. The plans were decades in the making.
Well, the wall really follows out of Israeli policies for the last 100 years, even before there was an Israel. Essentially, the problem is that Zionism has claimed this country, from the Mediterranean to the Jordan River, exclusively for the Jews. There is no other people here for the Israeli Jews. There's no Palestinians. There's no other collectivity with other rights to this country. This is our country exclusively, period.
The names of Professor Sofer and ex-Prime Minister Sharon come up repeatedly in any discussion of the wall. Sofer is the ideologue who first drew the maps for a construction of a wall in the 1980s. But it was the politician Sharon who put the reality on the ground.
The day he was elected, second time as Prime Minister, this very important evening, he called me to bring him next day my map with my proposal about the disengagement. Not to sit with him, but to give him my map, because my map was ready. And if you ask me how I did the map, I would say 90% I took in my consideration demography, 2-3% holy sites, and maybe 7-8% only security. My vision was that if we would like to keep Israel as a Jewish democratic state, we cannot enjoy the luxury of having all of Palestine, very sorry, because demography is the most deterministic factor in our problem at the moment.
As the main political force behind the erection of the wall, it fell to Israeli Prime Minister Sharon to allay the fears of Israel's backers. Good fences make good neighbors, he told US President George W. Bush, astutely quoting American poet Robert Frost.
Hopefully, good walls can make good neighbors. It goes all over the world. See the wall between me and my second house, and we are very good friends.
But Palestinians and Israelis have never been good neighbors, and the wall is a physical reminder of the antipathy on both sides. And even the very name of this divide is a contentious issue. Israel's official name for the wall is separation barrier. To some, it is a wall, while to others, it is a fence.
Only 3% of the barrier is wall. 97% is fence. Everybody wants to show in television the wall. But you have to remember that this wall is against shooting. It's only in places when people live very close to the fence and they can shoot through. Then you had to put it their wall. 97% is just a transparent fence.
But though a fence may have less visual impact, it takes up more ground.
It's true that the majority of the structure is not like this. The majority of the structure is electronic fence. That's only one component. There is patrol roads, there is detection paths of sand, there is trenches, there is razor wire. It's a very wide expanse. This is why the Israeli authorities use the term fence. But in fact, that part of the wall, to me, is actually worse than what you see here. The footprint is much wider. You have a 50 or 60 or 70 meters plus a buffer zone. And in terms of the damage it does to the environment, in terms of olive trees uprooted, irrigation systems cut, it's actually much worse than the wall part here.
And in many cases, the Israelis have taken land that has been passed down through generations of Palestinian families. Abu Akram has spent all his life farming in Ad-Dabba, but the arrival of the wall has brought disaster.
This is our land. I inherited it from my father, who inherited it from his father. When the wall came, they bulldozed the road through my field. My olive trees were destroyed.
And with the destruction of the olive trees comes economic ruin, as Palestinians are left unable to work because they are forced to spend so long negotiating the divide.
They forbade us from going to the other side of my own field freely. To get there, I have to pass 4 villages, up to the valley, and then walk by foot to the land. But even when we pick up a sack of olives, it has already cost us so much, even more than the selling price. We have despair. One cannot leave behind what is his, but we are utterly sick of what is happening. If you go around and ask most villagers here, the wall is killing them.
It is driving people to despair because the younger generation have there's no future livelihood for these villages. They're agricultural villages. If they're in a situation where only about 200 people or 300 people out of a population of 10,000, for example, some villages we've been to where only 200 or 300 people can get regularly to their land, obviously you can't call it an agricultural village anymore.
This wall has divided my land into 2. If I want to go to the far part, I have to be issued with a permit from the checkpoint and be escorted by a policeman and the settlement security officer to let me pass through a second gate into my land. They close it behind me and I wait for them to open it later. I tell you, at times I was waiting till midnight. I'm here. My wife is on the other side. I'm calling her. She cannot get here, and I cannot go there.
For as long as Palestinians suffer economic hardship, it's argued that there will never be peace.
I'll tell you, equality makes us better neighbors. If the Palestinians will have what Israel has, in legal terms, infrastructure for a state, a legal system, autonomy in education and welfare, and their own budgets and their own borders is only part of it. It's what's inside the border. If there will be equality, two states, equally the family of nations, and not one occupying the other, this will make for good neighbors. But good neighborhood is not necessarily love.
And yet it is argued that the wall exists to protect the economy, or at least the Israeli economy.
From 2001 until 2003, Israel lost almost 4% for its GDP. In those years, I mean, no one goes to see even a movie in Israel. No one used the buses in Israel because the security situation.
And according to the wall's architect, the security of the Israeli people comes first.
You see, you start from the end, and you give me a clear picture, a very miserable picture about people who suffer from the war. Go back from the beginning. Why we did it? Because of the suicide bombers, because of the sabotage, because of 1,000 Jews, children and other people that were killed in kindergartens, in coffees, in hotels.
Israel's so-called separation barrier has provoked domestic unrest and attracted international criticism. The route the wall takes has been deemed by the International Court of Justice in The Hague to be illegal and inhumane.
The issue of human rights that the International Court of Justice brings up is the issue of proportionality. Have a right to defend your population. Nobody is saying no. But you can't be disproportionate about it. You can't completely oppress and destroy another population for the sake of your own population. That's really the issue.
If the wall had been built along the Green Line, which is the internationally recognized border between the West Bank and Israel, Israel has the right to build a wall either on the Green Line or within its own territory. There will be about 50,000 Palestinians on the Israeli side of the wall when it's complete. And again, this undermines the security argument.
But Arnon Sofer argues that the revulsion expressed by many around the world is sheer hypocrisy.
We are not Europe. And even Europe, they erected walls. They don't tell you. But go to Gibraltar, to Malaga, Gibraltar to Portugal, Melilla, Ceuta in Morocco. What they are doing, these bloody Europeans? They are building walls and they criticize me.
And yet it is not just the international community that has condemned the wall. Even within Israel, there are many who believe that it isn't serving any useful purpose.
He was Minister of Defense.
Yael Dayan is Deputy Mayor of Tel Aviv, but probably better known for being the daughter of Moshe Dayan, the hero of the 1967 war, in which Israel annexed the West Bank. This current war, she argues, is not the answer.
First of all, it's not effective, and it has become, instead of being an obstacle to terrorists, it became another obstacle to peace in the sense that it is a provocation. It's not a peaceful partition. It became a political statement, and it adds very bad, deep feelings of additional occupation And also internationally speaking, it doesn't have legality from anybody in these places where it splits the population.
Yet the Israeli public went along with the idea. A highly decorated army pilot believes they allowed themselves to be duped with catastrophic results.
Naivety. I'm not using the harsh word stupidity. I'm saying naivety. To the people who want, you know that 80% of the Jews in Israel are waking in the morning and they say, oh my God, I want peace. Oh my God, so much. The left in Israel is praying for, he will give you his mother for the peace. Oh my God, I want peace. Naivete and stupidity. They thought that they'll build a fence and all our problems will be okay.
The wall is redrawing the map. Some Israeli commentators see it as an attempt to define, in wire and concrete, a future two-states solution by including within Israel the land of the Palestinian West Bank on which the illegal Israeli settlements have been built. And it is the settlers who stand to gain most from the wall.
It's a kind of a settlers' wall because they have adjusted the wall to the reality on the ground, to what the reality that the settlers have dictated with, of course, the full support of the government for many years. So, actually, if you look at the map of the wall, what you see is that the principle was maximum settlers, maximum settlements, minimum Arab population in Israel. So it has also a demographic dimension in it.
The meaning of the wall has nothing to do with security. Check the path yourselves. See that it is only protecting settlement, that it is built based on future plans for expandment of the settlement. The fence is not even protecting current settlers. It's going to protect future settlers, and that's absurd.
Many Palestinians too believe the real purpose of the wall is annexation.
If we are going into 2001 to Arnon Sofer, and the first proposals, it was for the demographic issue in order to limit the Palestinian expansion, because there is a fear, according to them, that in the 2020, the number of Palestinians in historical Palestine will be 60%. So by the wall, he said that he is going to assure that the Palestinians will be 30%.
The wall is basically about the idea that we don't want to see the Palestinians. It's a psychological barrier. It's not only a geographic. It's actually a two-state solution, but the way I want it to be. It's to get rid of the Palestinians, to get as many settlers inside Israel, and to give the Israelis the feeling that they are safer.
Put the Palestinians within walls, take out the land and the resources, no land that they can build and expand in the future. Their life will be impossible in these ghettos. There will no development, so they will force to leave. And they will force to leave by themselves. It means voluntarily expulsion.
Some, though, are determined to hang on. Hani's house is surrounded by the wall on all four sides. Why? Because it is right next to an Israeli settlement. And he is adamant he won't be giving up.
As long as I'm alive, I will never leave my house, whatever happens. When they failed to lure me with their incentives, they began threatening me. The Israelis came and said, we'll send an intelligence officer who will fire at the settlement and you would be blamed for it. We'll then demolish your house, you'll be branded a terrorist, imprisoned. You will lose everything, no livelihood for you, no livelihood for your children. So the best thing for you is to leave. But I resisted everything. I told them that I have only one choice. I'm going to stay here in my home and I will never leave.
Like all partitions, Israel's wall both excludes and encloses. The hardship which it would cause the excluded, the Palestinians, was predictable. What now worries many Israelis is what the wall has done to them, the enclosed, how it has created something which in historical terms is unthinkable.
We are building ghetto for ourselves. You know what a ghetto is. The Nazis put us under a ghetto in Warsaw. They built a fence around us, and what are we doing? We are fencing ourselves. We are putting ourselves in a ghetto. We shouldn't live like that.
But the wall continues to grow, and in the present political climate, it's difficult to see a time when it will be dismantled. Those on the extremes feel that this is a good thing.
I would like to see such a wall that even eagles will not be able to fly over. We don't belong to these crazy people.
You know, there is a story I heard from a former general who told me that he was sitting and having coffee with a very old man, a Palestinian old man in Bethlehem. And he told him, you know, I've been here with the Turks, with the British mandate, and with the Jordanian, and now with you. I've lived through all of this. You are treating us better than all the others, but you are the worst. So how come? So, because you're the only one who are taking our land. And this is the settlements and the war. So, in a nutshell, I think this is the whole story.